thank you everybody for joining us. I'm going to encourage anybody who's in the back to feel free to move forward and to be interacting with us, because if we are genuinely talking about innovation and empowerment, both of which are in the title of the session, this requires all of us to be in this together. So I am really, really thrilled with my panel, and I think that we've got some interesting questions which I've laid out. And towards the end, if you have any questions, there will be room for you to ask the questions yourself. And I'm going to warn you, I'm a bit of a strict moderator, so these will have to be questions and not statements. Statements are for coffee, questions are for our wonderful panel. Right, shall we start with one of the big ones, right? When we're talking about empowerment, it's very, very easy to talk in theory, right? But I am always a big fan of practical implementation. I feel like our audience would like to know, what have you done at your organization in terms of policy, and how did you, in order to have a positive impact on your workforce, and when you were doing this, how did you measure the impact? Now, I know that we've got a variety of different voices on the stage, so your organizations will vary, and what empowerment and policy look like at your organizations will vary. But I'm genuinely curious, what have you done that has had the most impact on your workforces to get people engaged? And in the case of Huma, I know you've got members, so kind of getting them involved as well. So shall we start this way, and then I'll mix it up. So shall we start with you, Dinesh?
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, it's nice to have a small group. I thought the hall would be full, We should have been on the other side, actually. Anyway, thank you, Namrata, for moderating this panel. And so I work with Seaspan. I've been with Seaspan for about 22 years, just to give a little background. I was a sailing master, and I was at sea for 26 years before that. So I've seen both sides, sea and shore. So as far as our company goes, one of the main things is the decision for empowerment must come from top. When that happens, everything else settles in. So right from our CEO and CEO and the board, it's their decision to ensure that this is measured on a regular basis. And also, if you look at our ESG report, the S part, the social part, that's where it's for everybody to see. You can look it up at Atlas Corporation and Seaspan Corporation, and you'll see that. Also,
so
I've seen
metrics that you are actively measuring and then
yes.
Publicly reporting.
That's right. Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's both at sea and shore. So also, there have been instances where I get a call, like my head office is in Vancouver, so I get a call, and then suddenly they ask me, the bankers want to know this, or somebody else wants to know this. So there are touch points there at various meetings that they have. So what we did is we allocated 25 ships where we would place women seafarers initially. And from that, we scaled down to about 17 now, where we have at least 3 women seafarers on each ship. So that makes it a lot easier for them, irrespective of the department, to manage whatever small issues they may have on board. Then implementing strict bullying and harassment policies. So there's absolutely, if a complaint comes, we look at it very seriously and deal with it immediately. So that's very important, what you do. Then we connected all the seafarers on a WhatsApp group. And so all of them can talk to each other, the peer groups, the seniors, juniors, all of them. So that helps them to sort out a lot of things among themselves.
You're creating communities.
Yes, to create a community, yeah. And additionally, ashore, we have got 5 engagement champions. Again, they are women. They are in various parts of the world. And if there's anything that needs to be conveyed, it's easier for a woman to convey to another woman, especially when you're new in the field.
You're starting out, yep.
Yeah. Then we do gender sensitization training. Now this, in our opinion, the men need it more than the women, because the women are coming in the men's world. So that helps a lot. And there's a lot of...
I'm going to quickly challenge that and say it's not a man's world, not anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
But we traditionally dominated by men, very, very true. And I think making men aware of what they can do to be welcoming, absolutely.
Sure,
I just always, my editor brain sticks in. Continue.
So it is people like us who support that cause,
Absolutely.
Yeah? And of course, Maritime SheEO and Sanjam, all the good work that she does. Then onboard facilities like common washrooms, like these are things that are not there on ships. So all the new ships, we have ensured these are done. Separate laundry facilities, working gear, uniform, medical facilities, sanitary disposals. These are all things that are now added on all the ships. And fair recruitment policies, all gender neutral. Also the cadets that we have about 250 cadets in a year. So here in India especially, they have an issue where they have a placement issue. So they may come and do training and spend a lot of money, and then finally they don't get a job. So we look at girl students from universities, we screen them, and if we find them suitable, then we place them in the institute ourselves. So they have a job before they start the training. So that's a difference. And also now we are looking at a bursary program. So it's not a scholarship, it's a bursary program where students who come from impoverished families or where they cannot, the fees are a little bit too much for the family to bear, we support them as well. This is again on a worldwide, something that we've done in 3 countries.
I mean, this is fantastic.
Only for girls.
Because I feel like what this has indicated is that you've genuinely looked at the problem, thought about the problem, and then allocated resources to the problem, yes. Right? You've actually turned around and said, here's policy, here's what we're measuring. We are actually going to allow, we don't just, I mean, and this is, I never said that this was you, but like a lot of companies might say, okay, we'll just have champions and women will use that, but to make sure that there are women champions, to make sure that there's 3 women on board so that no single woman is is by herself. There is this creating of communities. I think this is really fantastic. I'm going to come to you, Nathasha, because I can see you nodding. So talk to me about Ceyline.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, and it's an honor to be here with this panel. Thanks, Namrata, for the question. Let me start with my designation. So I'm the Chief Purpose Officer of Ceyline Group. I'm starting with that because I think it's kind of unique. Our purpose at Ceyline is inspiring leadership in everyone we touch to build a sustainable and equitable future for all. So the first part of that, inspiring leadership, that has to do with empowerment. We don't just mean folks who are designated leaders. When I came into this company 5.5 years ago, no one looked like me at the top. And we're starting to work to get, so for example, when I came in, our board was all men, all mostly from one school in Colombo, and now we've got 3 women on the board. And that took 5.5 years to get there. So
because change has to be iterative for it to work.
Absolutely. Across the organization, we have 730 employees, predominantly, well, a large portion of that is also in our healthcare organization. But leaving that aside, in maritime and logistics, we're at 21%. In terms of gender diversity, that is also something we are tracking. We want to make sure that we increase those, and we are working on targets that will make it work. On empowerment, I think this was mentioned in our introduction as well. It's about making folks feel like they have a voice and that they are heard. And once they are heard, it doesn't mean that we do exactly what they say. But we need to be empathetic to the problems that they have. And so we've taken a few steps across the organization to make that work, and I'll speak about 2 of them. The first one is something called the Confidant Network. So across our group, all female employees are assigned to confidants who are female. Our confidant network includes both male and female, but the female employees are specially assigned to a confidant. So that is a friend, essentially, who they can talk to. The confidants we train in a variety of ways, in empathetic listening and things like that.
So there's structured training for anybody in the confidant network?
Absolutely. So there are quarterly meetings also with our leadership team that is still mostly men, but they are also empowered to be confidants, to listen to folks, whether men or women or anything in between. That's one thing. So the Confidant Network, and that was part of our Inclusive Culture Development Policy Program. So that essentially works as an anti-harassment, anti-discrimination policy. And we've set that up in place not just for gender discrimination, but across the board, including race.
And I feel like it's a really good system, right? We often talk about buddies, and in maritime, for a very, very long time, we talk about mentoring and mentorship, right? It's the idea that you've got somebody where you can sense check what's going to happen and what you can expect the company to do. Is it safe to say that your experience has been a specific way. And I love the fact that everyone's gotten training in empathetic listening, which means that even, as you mentioned, very largely male-dominated culture, we know this. I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised by the room. There's actually a lot of women here, but given the topic of our conference, slightly less surprised. But it's great to have allies who have had training, because a lot of people want to help and they don't quite know how, right?
Absolutely. And what I have noticed across the board when I first came into Maritime is that the men want to help. So that table over there is mostly Ceyline employees, mostly men who are at the top. I also work very closely with Dinesh, and there are folks who want to help, and it is important for us to get everyone in the room excited about doing something that's good. And I think that's part of the empowerment. We don't want to make a world where suddenly we're only listening to women's voices or only listening to some minorities' voices. Everyone's voices need to be heard. The second thing we did was we set up a 360-degree evaluation process. So that runs twice a year. 5.5 years ago, we had a paper system, and only the superior provided feedback to employees. We are currently in the middle of our mid-year cycle, and so everyone has peers, subordinates, superiors. Those are the 3 sections. So people anonymously get to give feedback to folks, except if you're a superior. And so we have noticed that helps to encourage conversations of feedback and empower folks. Thank you.
And that makes total sense to me, right? Because if you're a leader and you actively want to help, your journey is probably very different to the journeys of people who are starting out, particularly if they're of a different gender to you, if they're a different race or a different socioeconomic class. So I think that's really, really interesting. And I feel like, Huma, you've got like a completely different challenge, right? Because you've got all of these members who have their own concerns, who are looking at empowerment their own ways. Could you talk to us about how you wrangle everyone's different needs and different opinions, but you are championing your region. So what does this kind of empowerment look like?
Thank you very much, Namrata. Good afternoon, everyone. I will just do a little bit of background about my association. So we are the only federally registered association that represents the entire maritime cluster, which includes the ship owners, the agents, the law firms, the supply chain, all of it. We are currently with about 100 members, and I have to say we are only 3 years old. So for an association, we're doing pretty well compared to our counterparts in the rest of the part of the world. When I was brought in, this was when the Emirates Shipping Association was not officially launched. It was a boardroom filled with 7 gentlemen, mixed culture, all of them in quite seasoned, I would say, within shipping industry, and extremely influential within their own companies as well. I was brought in and asked to set up the entire strategy, identifying what is it that the association would need to work towards. It was an extremely important and position where I was able to set that up, the core of what the association would work towards. And that itself was a great sign that despite these leaders, and you would on a general day be intimidated by them, were willing to step forward and empower.
Well, they wanted your expertise, right?
They wanted
said,
my expertise.
We know that there's a gap, we want to address the gap.
Exactly, and they were willing to adapt as well. Again, because of the background that I come from, A, non-shipping, second, maybe not the usual fit that you would see. One of the regular days it was, and nothing emergency-like, and we were supposed to round off at 5. I get called in for a board meeting at 4:30, and at 5, I'm looking at my watch right in front of the board member that 30 minutes is all we have, so you need to wrap up because I need to go back home and I need to get on with my life. And that was something that was absolutely appreciated. And I can tell you that that has become sort of an unsaid policy that is till date practiced within the organization, that post 5 p.m., no one is bothered. On weekends, we do not entertain each other's calls. So this has enabled and encouraged a lot more youth and women to be participating at our events, at all sorts of our engagements. So that has been one of the factors which I feel if we need to match the gap of, which we keep talking about, diversity, inclusivity, the newer generation. It's all about work-life balance. It's all about where do you draw the line between work and where do you want to progress. So that is something that we need to work towards. So I
think that's absolutely spot on, right? Because we aren't just employees, we're human beings. We have families, we have other obligations. Some of us are training, some of us have caring responsibilities, and not just women. There's like quite a lot. Can I just check, how many people in the room, because this is always an interactive session, and this is just a show of hands, how many people in the room feel like you have a really good work-life balance and you're empowered by your organization to do so? That is a very good cohort here and a cohort there that needs more conversations with your employer, clearly. But, let's make sure that we're continuing this conversation. So one of the fantastic things about the partnership that you're in, Daljit, is the idea of knowledge sharing and knowledge transfer and this cultural interaction. Can you talk to me about how you make sure that you are truly sustaining and making this knowledge share, this culture of empowerment and innovation truly sustainable?
Thank you very much. I think I'm slightly an odd man out because I represent a port authority and we are a landlord port. So you have a lot of companies in the port actually doing a lot of operations. So a lot of companies have their own policies rather than we having it at the port. But if you look at the statistics, we contribute to almost 4.5% of Belgium's GDP. That's a big number in terms of what you do, but it comes out of total throughput, and all these companies are engaging around 160,000 employees, direct and indirect. Now, I'll just come back, before I answer this question, I'll just quickly answer to what Huma also mentioned about the work-life balance, and it's very important because we see a lot of women in our port actually more in the office jobs or in the factory levels, but when it comes to port operations, when it comes to loading and unloading, we still have a man-dominated world, which we have had a survey and we feel that it's still below 20%, but we are making sure that we get to that level. And office levels is almost equal, like 50% each. But coming to the work-life balance, I think before COVID, in COVID, you find a lot of Indian companies actually talking about this work from home culture, which was earlier like a privilege, like somebody getting a work from home for a day would have been a privilege. But in Belgium is one country which is always propagating a 4-day week. And then we have women in my offices who actually work 3 days a week because no matter what you say, women take on more responsibilities than men do, to be honest, because they have, and it's actually,
it's cultural.
It's cultural, it's inbuilt actually. It's an inbuilt mechanism for a woman actually because.
Inbuilt to society.
Yeah, a mechanism
I can
because
promise you
a
on a
woman
Sunday I want to do
particularly would be more empathetic towards her family than a man because he would probably look at from a broader perspective of just making sure that he earns money and he takes care of the family from a broader perspective, but a woman will be more emotionally attached to everything that comes in. So no matter what you say, they will still have that kind of empathy towards the whole family. And that is where I think it's very important for companies to look at that flexible culture, and we've been doing that in the port, very important. Coming back to what you said about innovation, I think that comes in from within because innovation can be at any level. It could be from a company level, it could be from a level about broadly just having a trend that is coming in, how do you define that innovation is also important. For example, we do work with quite a lot of innovation companies right now, and that includes all the startup companies. We have an incubator called Beacon, where we have all these companies coming and actually collaborating on a new technology. As a port, we've opened a platform to a lot of these companies coming and innovating. And there is where you don't see only startup companies, we've also seen all the majors. Now, if I just give you a background, Port of Antwerp, Antwerp particularly as a city, is the largest integrated chemical cluster in Europe, and this is the second largest in the world after Houston. So you can imagine the companies like BASF, Total, ExxonMobil, all having these production facilities in the port area. Now these companies, when they talk about innovation, they're not only collaborating with these startup companies, they're actually taking a space in that incubator, where they actually see what is happening. And then you can actually, there's a lot of mutual respect that builds in between the companies and the startups, and they actually can innovate. Also gives the startup companies, it could be a man or a woman who's building up the startup, gives a lot of empowerment to him to actually look at a problem from a broader perspective. And then they can actually build up that solution. So this is not only about I having a startup and I say, okay, I have a solution for this. You've got to make sure that it's aligned with the industry, and the industry also picking up that thing. So partnerships can be on a broader level that we talk about.
So I think the point that you made was absolutely right in terms of having workplaces that are more inclusive, right? And when we talk about more inclusive, obviously, I slightly disagree with you, just so that we're aware, about the idea that women are naturally more empathetic. I don't believe that's true. I think society kind of makes us do that, and there is an expectation of us, or otherwise there is a word used for us, and it starts with the letter B, and it's not very nice. But what I would say is that when you have women in leadership who are really looking at the numbers and looking at this, you will see a lot more parity, but you will hopefully, and I love the idea that across our entire panel, people are looking at policies to make it easier for people to have lives outside maritime. It makes it easier for us to have, the ability not to burn out at work and to be able to contribute meaningfully there and to not have to pick between our personal lives and our professional lives. But I love what you were talking about in terms of COVID and the innovation and technology. So let's go around the table and just talk about technology and the kind of technical innovation that you've had, that you've seen, and how this has led to empowerment. Who would like to go next? Huma, you've been looking at me, so I'm just going to come to you.
So in terms of technology, I would say a few of my partners, which is around the ports, who have shown and implemented the use of AI a lot. I would say they have used AI to enable a lot more processes that can be improvised and efficiency can be increased for early detection of fire or any of those operational challenges which they would have otherwise. One such tool that we recently saw was while we visited the control room of Tuas Port in Singapore. And it was extremely fascinating to me because I saw a room where there were mixed group, women, men, youth, everyone playing around with the joysticks. Yeah. And I was curious to understand what they were doing, and then it was the containers that they were moving with those joysticks, and some of them were crane operators. Now this is the technology we need to start replicating and bringing it to many parts of the world. And that is something we hope that Abu Dhabi Ports is looking into, as well as even DP World. So that's one in terms of technology, and this also helps create that sort of job profiles which will be far more successful in the near future.
Amazing. Dinesh, could I pull you in? Because obviously you're talking about, you have come up with so many policies and you're measuring things. How is technology empowering this, and where are you hoping the technology is going to take you to?
So as far as technology goes, technology and the manpower, the people who manage it, it goes hand in hand. And for us, we looked at VR, AR, augmented reality, especially for training our seafarers on the dual-fueled LNG ships. So for key tasks like maybe bunkering and things like that on those ships, because they're very specific. So technology plays a big role. Then, since we own and operate only container ships, the container ships' cargo holds, they have sensors but no sprinklers. So all our new ships, we have got sprinklers fitted. So God forbid if there's a fire, you can use the sprinkler system. So that's again technology added. And we also partnered with Amazon. We got a Amazon at Sea project where we're looking at buying ship spares through Amazon. So that'll be rolled out to the shipping in general.
I love that. Like order a new dress, order some ship spares.
Yes.
Order my new toothbrush heads, all in one go.
Yeah, you can. And then also hydroponic setup. That's also a very nice thing.
To grow food on board your ships?
Yeah. So you have like 4 boxes and then you can grow the greens on board.
Wow, yeah, that's fantastic.
So, yeah, that's really nice. So this is all part of technology. But also one small thing that I want to add is recently, last week, we had a little incident on one of the ships. So I'm just sharing because for information for everybody. We had a captain who was in his shower, and then suddenly he saw in his shower cabinet there was smoke coming out of it. So luckily he was there in the shower. So he got off and then he put it off. So there was a shaver which had a lithium-ion battery, and the lithium-ion battery, caught fire. So it wasn't on charge or anything like that, but that's how it is with lithium-ion. So you got to be really, really careful in how you manage this and how those fires are put on. They're very different. The exothermic
extremely difficult. I mean, yeah. I know that, for those of you in maritime who've been keeping an eye on passenger ferries and car carriers, if you look at EV cars on board these ships, it's really challenging because if one goes, basically all of it goes. You're looking at a total loss of all your cargo and your ship, and hopefully, fingers crossed, no loss of life and pollution. But it's really quite scary.
Yeah. And then for the ships, to monitor the ships from technology point of view. So at sea, we look at Orca AI, this is AI, and Avicus. And then in ports, we use the marine traffic. So we can actually look at our ships, what they're doing, and guide the ship's crew accordingly. So this is all technology.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think, again, harnessing technology is really interesting. So Nathasha, how are you guys harnessing technology?
So the way we introduce ourselves to each other as well, I think to all of you, so now our business cards have moved to sort of a tap business card. We're trying to reduce how many trees we cut. That's one. But like Daljit said, COVID played a huge role in, I think, speeding up the uptake of technology. And I think we had a few folks, there's a lot of old school folks in maritime who needed to see their employees sitting right in front of them to know that they're doing work. And they had to let that go during COVID because people were not in front of them. And they realized that people could do work even without the constant supervision. And technology gives us a lot of pathways to do that, to facilitate work from home, to facilitate flexible working hours. So we're looking to do a lot of that. At Ceyline, our evaluation system is online, our HRIS system is online, and right now we're rolling out Acumatica as our ERP system across the group as well, across 14 companies. So we're really trying to digitalize Ceyline Group, which is a company that's been around for 40 years. So change management is part of what we're working through right now. But it's definitely where we need to go. And we're empowering folks to get involved with the innovation coming up.
So Daljit, could I ask you what kind of changes that you've brought in through technology?
Okay, I think, again, I'll just tell you what the size of the port is actually. We are approximately 14,300 hectares of land, which approximately translates into 140 square kilometers of land. That's the port area that we're talking about. Now, one of the newest technologies that we're working on is a digital twin. Now, imagine having, and I mentioned we have a chemical cluster, so we have all the sensors. We've got to monitor what gases are released, what is the water levels, what is the dredging required in the port, how much is the wastage, how much is the oil spillage, everything we've got to monitor.
What's traffic looking like, all of it?
Everything. The weather, the traffic, how many ships are waiting, everything has to be looked at. Now imagine doing it at a 140 square kilometer area, you can't do much about it with manual intervention. So we got drones, we got cameras, we got eye noses, what are basically nozzle sensors. And then all about this, we actually translate that into a kind of a real-time digital mapping. Now imagine covering an area of 140 square kilometers, just sitting in a room, and you could monitor everything and you could see everything that is happening in the port. So that your quick rescue operations can take place immediately because your drones are flying over, your cameras are catching, your AI has been active because they actually now predict what is happening, and then you can really do operations. The other one, which is very important, and I'll just take one more minute, is that Huma just mentioned about some people playing around joysticks. Now that's basically a operation where they turn around with containers or move containers around. But imagine what we are working on is an estimated time of arrival tool, which means that when you're sending your container from India to Europe particularly, when it enters through a port, you will exactly know what time it will arrive, what is your next mode of transportation, how much time will it take for your shipment to release. So you're actually predicting everything with the help of technology, and that's going to be a massive change what's happening.
And of course, saving, ships having to wait at harbour,
exactly,
to run their engines. It's a reduction in fuel use, but it's also a reduction in vibrations and pollution. It's kind of all of it. And we know that there are lots of studies by even the IMO about just-in-time arrival.
True, and I think going further, you're going to capture, or you're going to monitor all the carbon capture that you're emitting. So that's again a part of technology that you exactly know how much time is it going to take. With all this disruptions that are happening right now in terms of maritime traffic, you need to know what's your time, because it all depends upon your commitment to your customer, because your customer is waiting for your products to come in. It's not that you can just send it and then the customer will take it whenever it requires. So you've got to schedule, you've got to make sure everything is working, and if you can predict that well in advance, that will really help actually.
It's fantastic. So we've heard what all of our speakers have done at their various different organizations and what this looks like, whether you've got seafarers and ship owners, whether you're looking at ports, whether you're looking at member associations. So there is a lot of information that has been passed to you. I'm very aware of time, so I'm going to ask one last question to sort of wrap it up. And I'm going to give my panelists a choice of question, which will allow them to pick what they want to kind of emphasize. One of which is, what regulatory or systemic hurdles do you think are preventing innovation in your sector? Or the other one is, what is an innovation that you're really impressed by? So either what has really impressed you and you think this is a fantastic piece of innovation, or what do you think needs to basically be broken down or changed in order to facilitate this innovation? And we're going to start with you first.
Okay, so I did mention about the digital twin, that is interesting for me. But the other innovation that we're actually doing at the port is about using autonomous shipping. Now, this is very unique because we already have, like, if you look at a company, says Port of Antwerp-Bruges, we have two platforms, two ports actually, and one company. So the distance between the two ports is around 100 kilometers. We're trying autonomous shipping. Currently, it's on a semi-autonomous mode, but as the regulations change around fully autonomous, that's going to be effective. What it means is...
There's a mass code coming in.
Yeah, so that means actually a lesser human error, and you could have an end-to-end complete monitoring. I mean, you have driverless cars, but now you're talking about autonomous shipping completely without a manual intervention. That's going to be a big change.
Absolutely. Nathasha.
I'd like to speak about the regulatory and systemic hurdles. From a woman's point of view, in Sri Lanka, our ports don't allow for women to work after hours. And then our...
Only women?
Only women, yes, for their safety.
Yes, because working late turns me into a pumpkin.
Something like that. And then there's also laws that make it costly for the corporation, which is not a bad thing, the laws themselves. So for example, we give Sri Lankan law gives 84 days of maternity leave. That's mandated. On top of that, you can ask for another about 3 months at half pay and another 6 months on top of that. All of that cost is borne by the corporations at the moment. There's also...
is there any paternity at all?
Not legally, but yes, at Ceyline.
Well done.
But there's also feeding hours. It's 2 hours for the year. All of that is cost for the corporations. I feel like this is something at a government policy level that the public needs to... These are reasons why we might see corporations decide to hire a man versus a woman.
If it's more costly to hire somebody of a specific gender, then you have to be an exception to be hired, which is just, it's systemically unfair.
Absolutely. So there are things that I think we need to, at a government policy level, we need to change. But us at Ceyline, we talk a lot about the 7 habits of highly effective people. That talks about an inside-out approach. So at Ceyline, like I said, we've started paternity leave. It's only 10 days, not enough, I know. We're planning to increase that, and we're planning to also, in 2026, start a flexible work policy. So we're doing what we can, but it would help to,
Absolutely, and gathering data, measuring it, and sharing the impact, particularly I'm guessing on recruitment and retention, would have a real, that would be data that the government could use to convince itself.
Absolutely, and Ceyline actually launched the first report in the inclusion of women in the maritime industry with Maritime SheEO earlier this year, so we've got some data on that as well for the first time in a report as well.
Wonderful. Huma.
I believe innovation happens when it's not just one-sided and from one stakeholder. It is very much impactful when you have the government and the non-government players and the stakeholders within the same room across the table. And that's what we have been trying to do for the past couple of years now. Because of this, we did launch something known as the Maritime Leadership Program, where we do take the 15 leading executives from within the country to all of these decision makers, not just within the UAE, but also start the cross-country, cross-industry dialogues and collaboration. And we have seen a massive change. When we started at the very initial time, I struggled to get any women in there. I struggled. Though I actively looked out for them, encouraged them, I noticed that I heard a lot of excuses. I heard that, maybe our budgets are a bit tight. Maybe, our work priority is not letting us do that. And despite having those constant push, I struggled. But then the following year, when they did see that, you know, the kind of impact it has had, we saw 26% straight jump for the following year.
That's huge.
Yeah, so that was really encouraging, and it just means that when women start prioritizing their career over their job, things change, and you will find a way out. So a lot of innovative, a lot of policies started getting introduced both within their organizations as well as in ours. So we did see that reflect across the board of our memberships.
And I think it's particularly interesting with the topic that we're talking about, which is, of course, you know, we're talking about innovation through empowerment. I think that having different voices, different ways of thinking at board level is going to, and as you literally said, right, visibility, seeing it happen once and seeing there not be negative consequences meant that more people were willing to take that chance. And that's real change, right?
Yes.
Have you seen the results of that in a really positive way?
Absolutely. The visibility, when they notice that women are leading the journey, they are getting their experiences out there, somewhere we are breaking the glass ceiling. Somewhere we
Fantastic.
are giving them that sort of ray of hope. And just as a concluding note, I would say that a lot of women have walked through the door, but it's very important for us to keep holding that door for others. So that's something I'd like to say.
Absolutely. And I would actually even say, men, hold the door open. Allow the women in, right? Because you're already in the room. Dinesh, on that note.
Thanks, Namrata. So I'd like to share something that we did as a company. This is something that we have shared also in the Container Ship Safety Forum. And we have got 4 master mariners in our office. And this is something that other companies can replicate as well. It's looking at for running safe ships and safe ports, both. So at sea, we can look at Orca and Navicus. And in port, we look at the marine traffic. So it's a very low-cost thing that we set up in the office.
Harnessing existing technologies and data.
Yes. So we can actually look at where the pilot boards and how the ship is brought in, what is the speed at which the ship comes in. And also if the pilot brings in the ship too fast, then we can go back to them with hard evidence. Because as a ship master, the master cannot do that on his own. So we as a company, we can do that. We can go back and tell them, listen, this is the speed with the pilot run, here is the hard evidence, and you got to fix this thing. Because there's a safety for the port as well, right? It's not only for the ships. So with this, we found that a lot of our masters are disciplined. They run the ships better. Our ships are safer. And for the ports are also safer. And it's a very, very low cost. And if anybody wants to know more details, they can connect with me and I'll help them. And as we have helped all the big container companies to set it up. You don't need an elaborate setup. You just need 4 computers and 3-4 guys, depending on the fleet size that you have. So we have a fleet size of 172 ships that we're managing with just 4 people in the office.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm going to quickly check if with the person in charge, Geeta, I believe, whether we have time at all for questions from the audience or whether actually we're done. We are past the time. So what I would say is if you have questions, come find us. We're going to be outside. Come ask us questions. We want to answer them. Does anybody have a question? I feel like people are now ready for lunch, so we're going to let you guys do that. But I will have a question for the audience, and feel free to come and talk to us, which is, what have you noticed at your organizations that has made a real change for you, right? In terms of, we're talking about feeling empowered. For me, what it was, you know, having time to be able to look at stuff, having planning time to be able to think strategically and not just be firefighting. I hope that your organizations are giving you this kind of empowerment, whatever you need, because it could be something like using AI and using data. It could be policies. As you said, it could be digital twins. It could be time. It could be resources. It could be paternity leave. Different strokes for different folks. And I look forward to continuing this conversation outside. But back to you, Geeta.
Thank you.